Hey, what's up? So this one's called Your Reputation Precedes You, but it's also very much about image and how it's related to narcissism, or at least certain traits that are associated with narcissistic personality disorder. And so it goes like this. I was working on a job site recently, and somebody brought to my attention that there was a person there, and they called them by a certain name, and I was unaware. And I'll just say it. So like this, I was talking with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, that guy, the cow beater," and I was like, I'm wearing earplugs all the time at work. So I was like, maybe I heard him wrong. And then I gave him a look, and he knew that I didn't know what he was talking about. And this person knows that I'm a vegan, so it's like I have a soft spot for animals and whatnot. And so he said, and I was like, and he said it again. I was like, what are you talking about? And then he said, well, a couple years ago, there was a guy that got filmed beating a cow with his fists. He was trying to get a cow to move, and somebody recorded him beating a cow with his fist, punching it and stuff like that, trying to get it to do whatever he wanted to do. And so this made the news here in the Lower Mainland. I live in Chilliwack, and so it made the news. Like the Vancouver news and whatnot. Everybody knew about this thing, and so the aftermath of it, like this person is never allowed to own an animal, a pet, and they're certainly not allowed to work in the animal agriculture industry ever again, as a result of what happened there. And then this person is also known as a cow beater. I mean, I wouldn't, I don't call the person that, but I mean, that's what the people call them. And so that's what we would kind of refer to him as, be like, oh, that guy, the cow beater. And I remember saying this because we were talking about this person, and it comes up, right? Because I don't know. I mean, because your reputation precedes you. You're known for the things that you do. And then somebody jumped in to defend him and said, hey, that was a long time ago. You got to let that go. I was just like, I don't think that time has anything to do with it. I mean, if you get caught for a sort of a heinous crime, there is no amount of time that goes by that makes it sit well with people. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not really about, I don't know, forgiveness, because it's not like I don't have anything to do with that person, but I mean, that's the person's reputation, right? And so that's why it brought this thing up. It's just like, well, the thing is it probably wasn't the first time that he did it. And I wonder where he learned it from. And also, yeah, I mean, so it was probably something that was going on. So that was just really the time that he got caught. Was it the first time that he got caught? It was certainly the first time that he got caught on camera by somebody who was outraged by what was taking place. And so, and then this person, became known. And so now he works in the construction field. And I mean, and so, I mean, and you would have to know. I mean, it's only if you live in the town where this person is from. And so this is the thing, though. It's like, if you don't want your reputation to precede you, you essentially need to move to another town where nobody recognizes you or knows the things that you did in that other town. I mean, I think it's probably been like that since the Stone Ages, or from, for eons, right? I mean, back in the day, if you did something, if you were known for doing something, what is it in some places in the UK, you'd be called a sheepshagger or something like that. If you got caught doing something disgusting or something foul, something wrong, something rude, something weird, you become known as that. I mean, even just like the littlest things, people will find a nickname for you that aren't even all that bad, right? And so yeah, I mean, your option is basically to move to another town if you want to avoid that label, because yeah, because it doesn't sit right with people. It's just like if you know, you can do a lot of nice things in the world, but if you get caught molesting children, you're known as a child molester or a pedophile. Or if you can do a lot of good stuff, but if you get caught for being a rapist or something like that, or for, you know, you become known as that thing until the end of time. And it's hard for people to get over that. Like maybe people who are like deeply spiritual and be like, oh no, you know, they might be able to completely look past it, but most people are operating on a pretty egotistical level, and they're not going to let that one slide. And so you kind of have to just yeah, take it for what it is. Another one too, like what's his name, O.J. Simpson. I mean, you can be this amazing person in this one realm, but if you kill two people, you become known as a murderer. I mean, there is no way around this. It's just that it's what, you know, it makes all of that other stuff that you do sort of null and void. It's like it doesn't matter anymore that you do that stuff because you did that, right? And so it's just a you know, it's not like this is advice for anybody, but it's just a funny thing that came up, right? And so, or not funny, but it's an interesting thing that came up that I put a little bit of thought into, because that's what I do. And so aside from that, how this ties in with narcissism, right? So narcissism is a funny thing, right? I mean, the thing is like, it has to do with people who behave very poorly towards, like, say, in a romantic relationship towards their partner. But in general, out in public, they are friendly. They come across as nice, as especially, like, you know, the thing is, there's different kinds of narcissists. There's overt narcissists who just don't even care at all, you know, and that's getting towards almost like, you know, above overt narcissism, there's sociopath and then psychopath, like just do not care at all what anybody thinks, right? So there is a spectrum of all of this stuff, but lower on the spectrum of somewhere on the spectrum of the narcissist is what's known as a covert narcissist. So it's a person who, you know, might come across as very sweet to other people. They might come across as sensitive, a gentle soul, really kind out in public, but then behind closed doors, they're abusive, they're manipulative, they're passive aggressive, they're controlling. They have just like an energetic, like there's an intensity to the things that they say, the way that they treat their significant other. They belittle them and gaslight them, like as in like come at them in ways, and then when the person erupts, and then like point the finger at them and say, oh, see, look, it's you're look at the way you're behaving, which just drives a person insane, you know, like and so, and this is the thing, this is where sort of the connection is it's like where it's difficult, because people, it's like what people do behind closed doors until you get caught for it red-handed, unless somebody has a way to prove it, especially with the people who have some of these narcissistic qualities, like the ones that I just mentioned, the passive aggressive kind of behaviors, I mean, and whatnot. And yeah, they get away with it unless you can expose them or whatnot, and then they have to, if it becomes known that they are in fact abusive, then they have to essentially vacate the premises because they become known as an abuser. And this is, it's yeah, I don't know how to say it. It's funny because it's very similar to this thing with the cow beater. It's like once you become known for being a person who is abusive, as somebody who takes advantage of others who are either unable or unwilling to stand up for themselves, or to push back, or to draw healthy boundaries or whatever, or to speak up and say, hey, this is unacceptable, right? And I've known a number of people like this. Narcissism is, when I started learning about this a number of years ago, it became something, because once you start to recognize what the qualities, what the behaviors that are associated with narcissistic personality disorder look like, you start to see it more and more in places that you don't even want to, right? Because then you start to realize that certain people, it's like, well, in a colloquial sense, you might call that person a bitch, right? That's the first time I've ever swore on camera, but I've decided to swear when I need to. But that is the word. But that it's a non-scientific word, right? It doesn't really help anything to use a broad generalization such as that in order to help give definition or categorization to a person and their set of the set of behaviors that they're displaying, so that you can kind of understand what it is that you're dealing with and what you might be up against if you're involved with a person who is in fact working with this, I don't know, I don't like to call it a disorder, because it's just like ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's not a disorder, right? I mean, to me, ADHD, which I have, when I got it from my dad, and this is the thing, is all of these things run in families. And so for me, it's like, I can't pay attention to things that I think are boring. I require things that are interesting to me to actually pay attention to them. If it's just mind numbing, my eyes start to close and I just want to go do something else. And it's funny because like my dad's the same thing. So I'm more introverted, he's more extroverted. And if I am talking about psychology, philosophy, or spirituality to his face, he will literally, he could be standing right there, he will literally turn around 180 degrees and walk in the other direction as if I wasn't standing there having a conversation with him, because he just has a natural reaction where he's just like, no, not listening to this, don't want to hear it, not into it, it's not happening. And so it's a funny thing, and it's not a disorder. I mean, it is if you don't recognize that it is just a particular energy, and you need to learn how to work with it. You need to learn how to understand it and how to channel it. It's not about a disorder, right? And the same thing came up. The same thing came up yesterday. I was over at a gathering, and I heard some people yammering on. Somebody brought up obsessive compulsive disorder, and they're like, oh yeah, it's like when a person has to like turn the lights on and off 10 times, and it's like, I was like, no, I don't think so. I was like, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not something that the two of you figured out sitting on a couch here in Chilliwack just now. I tell you what it's not. It's not that. because like my mother had a severe case of obsessive compulsive disorder, and like to the point where my father had to get custody of us because it was not, it was unhealthy for us to live in that environment. Nobody was thriving, right? I mean, was the idea. And so that is what happened there. But so I as well inherited this obsessive compulsive disorder, right? And then once again, we have this word disorder, right? But so I inherited this this condition, this energy. I would call it a gift. I inherited obsessive compulsive gift from my mother, but it's more like, you know, because they were saying it's like, oh, well, like some people like to count stuff. And I was like, I do that. I count everything. I mean, I think a lot about a lot of stuff. Most of the time I'm thinking about stuff or trying to stop thinking. But the rest of the time, if I'm doing things, say if I'm filling up a water bottle, I might be counting how long it takes to fill up the water bottle. Like if it takes 13 seconds, but I don't remember that number. It doesn't mean anything. I don't do anything with it. I don't store it away. I don't remember it or anything like that. If I'm walking around the room doing things, when I'm picking things up, it's just something that I do as a pastime. It's just something that I like when I'm picking things up. It's just like I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, don't do it with everything. I don't count stairs that I'm walking up. I don't count. But when I was a kid, I remember the first time I noticed it when we were driving down the road. I would count the telephone pole. No, I would count the spaces in between the telephone poles as we went by and coordinate my breathing with them. And that was my first indication that I had something, I had received an energy passed down energetically from my mother. And but because I was aware of how her condition affected her in a negative sense, I always made a conscious effort to not let that happen, for what it's worth. Yeah. And so the other thing too, like, so, and I was explaining to these girls, I was like, you know, to me, it's more like this. Okay, yeah, I count things, but it's like, I just like keeping track of things. I just like paying attention to things. I just like being aware of stuff. I just like tracking things. You know, it's not like none of that, like that, yeah, none of that is a problem in the rest of my life. It means that I'm very organized and methodical in the things that I do. It translates into my work. It translates into my music making because I'm paying attention to intervals. I'm paying attention to just different things that are going on naturally. It is, and it's never caused a problem for me. It's never been an issue ever once in my life. The only time I can think in that maybe it was like a little bit of a thing was like sometimes like before jumping in cold water, I would like do this breathing thing where I would have to exhale a couple times before jumping in. But recognizing that it felt like a sort of a habit, like a subconscious kind of behavior that I didn't want to be subject to. I just made a choice to not do that anymore. And then at that point, it never was an issue. But, you know, we're talking like very, very young, you know, 6, 7 years old kind of deal. So I think we're allowed to, yeah, you know, learn some things anyways. So, but the thing is, how this kind of ties in with the narcissism is that this stuff, it runs in families as well. And I am not sad to say it, but it seems to run in mine. I have identified narcissistic personality traits in a number of individuals in my family and to a certain lineage, how it ran down a bloodline, down a mother's side, from a grandmother to a daughter to another daughter, and is being passed on because it's a set of behaviors. It has to do with when you're young, being exposed to, say, your mother treating a man in a certain way and essentially getting away with it. And then that behavior becomes normalized, and so it's just like you don't even see it. It's just like, oh no, this is just me asserting myself, this is just me getting what I deserve and whatnot. It's like, well, if you're making demands and stuff like that, it's like, just think about if you're the only one who's making those kinds of demands and saying like, well, I need this and I need that and da da da. Like they say, people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they have a lot of boundaries. And I experienced this with my last girlfriend. I mean, because I'm a person who is just inspired by absolutely everything. And so I would just always be like, hey, guess what? This is what came today, or this is what came this afternoon, this morning. I mean, while I was in the bathroom, having a shower, whatever. And she was just like, hey, so you can't just come up to me and talk to me anymore and tell me the things that you find interesting. You have to ask permission first. I was like, wow, that takes like all of the fun out of being me and having a partner. It's just basically ruined it right there, And it's just like, because they don't, if it's not about them, or no, I mean, I don't want to go into that part of it, right? But I mean, yeah, there's reasons for the boundaries and stuff like that. And it's not to say that these people can't be compassionate. It's not to say that these kind of people can't be nice. It's not to say that these kind of people can't be, compassionate, nice, friendly, and stuff like that. But the thing is that, does it really matter what mask a person puts on when they're outside in front of others? Because they're just essentially supporting an image. They're putting on a show. Because what really matters is how you treat the people that are, arguably the most important to you behind closed doors. Are you an abusive person who uses something to your advantage in order to get what you need or what you want, in order to coerce, in order to bully or boss or manipulate, or any of these kinds of things, right? And so I mean, and this is kind of the sad thing, and it's really hard because with a person who is dealing with this kind of narcissistic tendencies, it's just like the ego. It's because it's tied in with that. I mean, it is so elusive. It is beyond their field of vision, because to them, for them, it's not them. It's everybody else. Like they say, there's a phrase with narcissism. It's like the narcissist is always the victim or the hero, but never the villain. And this is one of the ways that you can identify this kind of behavior in another person, is when you're having a conversation with them and you're aware of this kind of stuff. And then you start to notice the way that they portray themselves and how they they don't mind, talking about other people, this and that, and they might criticize themselves a little bit, but it's usually like in a sort of a, I don't know how to call it. It's almost like a humble brag sort of a way, where they're just kind of, they're like, they're saying something, but they're also kind of putting themselves up at the same time. It's weird, right? It's a very tricky frame of mind to have and to deal with and to recognize. But it's like, if you've ever had to deal with somebody like this, or you found yourself in a situation where you're just like, what is going on? I've never experienced something so perplexing. And then you watch a few YouTube videos about psychologists, and you start to learn about what these major traits of narcissistic personality disorder are, and what the different types of narcissists are. And then it's just like, you have certain relationships in your life, just all of a sudden, boom, and everything makes sense. And then you start to understand yourself too, because you enable them, because you essentially don't have enough self-worth of your own, right? And so, because it takes two to tango, it's not like you're just a victim. You have some growing to do as well. You have to grow a spine, and you have to say no to somebody who you might not want to, who might try to use some tactic to get you to do what they want. And you will have to draw a line in the sand and stand firm and be like, hey, no, right? And it's like, it's just not worth it. I can't live like this. And it might be the end of a relationship. It certainly was for me, in a number of cases. I feel like I've known a good 5 or 6 narcissists in my day. And I think that a lot of it, like on a personal level, it is that I'm being prepared by the universe to understand this in a way where I can talk about it. Because if you just read books about this, or if you just if you just watch YouTube videos and you don't really have the first-hand personal experience, you can't really speak to it in the same way that a person who's had numerous encounters with this sort of level of mind, this way of approaching relationships and whatnot. Narcissism, if you don't have that kind of experience, then you just don't get it, right? And so I am personally very grateful for all of my run-ins with this kind of stuff. It is not over. I can tell you that for sure. Because like right now, I deal with somebody frequently. I know a few people who are like this, but I don't have to deal with them frequently, but I know somebody who is. And the funniest thing is that a lot of people are convinced that this person is just like the nicest person, the most gentle soul ever. But because they don't really know this person, because they've never really spent a considerable amount of time getting to know this person, and you're not who you are when you're like out in public, or say like when everything is awesome and you're just sitting on the couch and things are good and you're having a great time. You are who you are when the shit hits the fan. When you are under pressure, when push comes to shove, that's who you are. That is the biggest thing that reveals your character right there, is how you treat other people when it matters the most. That is what counts. And so yeah, and but but like I said, it's a tricky one, because how do you who wants to go around tarnishing somebody's reputation, especially somebody who is highly manipulative and coercive? It's not worth it. A lot of the time they say the best thing to do is just disengage, or don't engage in the first place when you're dealing with people like this, or sometimes it is cut your losses and walk away. Because for a person to be like this, they have to be quite intelligent to be able to manipulate. You can't be an idiot, right? Or else it wouldn't work for you. You have to have a certain cognitive ability. So we're talking about people who are fairly smart, but are just on a sort of a negative path. And this is the thing too, is that at the end of the day, it's not their fault, right? They were brought up that way. It was the example that they were given. They don't know any better. They don't realize. It's very hard to put your finger on, and it's devastating. It could be devastating to learn that this thing that is really frowned upon, you are in fact very guilty of, and you actually house all of these qualities that are known to add up to this thing that we describe as narcissistic personality disorder. And so, I always say the same thing, is that we're all brought into this world under the exact same conditions, which is blind. Nobody gets to choose what they're taught as truth or shown as way. Nobody gets to choose the environment that they're brought up in, going against the grain is easier said than done. It's challenging to face some of these demons, that some of us are carrying around, other ones are to do with shame, lack of worth, it's to do with self-image, it's to do with insecurity. These are deep things, right? So it's you don't want to write a person like this off, right? Because they really need the most help. But it's a catch-22, right? You're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because what do they say? It's no, Jiddu Krishnamurti, he said, it is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to sickness. So just because you can survive in an abusive relationship, or pretend like it's not that bad, or that you're doing them a service, it's no measure of good health to be well adjusted to sickness. That's not, but this is the thing, is there's a relationship between narcissists and empaths, people who are very deeply compassionate, who choose to overlook, or not choose, who just overlook the negativity that others harbor and focus on the positivity. There's a direct relationship between those kinds of people and narcissists, because a narcissist requires that. They need somebody to not see this monkey that they got on their back, because if you did, you'd be like, oh boy, yeah, no, not for me. And so it's a tricky relationship. But because they need that. Somebody, if you want to be abusive, you have to have somebody to abuse, somebody who has to take it. So you need somebody who's passive, and somebody who's going to, and so, it's a tricky thing, right? And, it's really hard to deal with, especially when you're talking in your own family, because say if when you recognize it, it's hard to tell, say, somebody who is your elder, that, like, what do? Do you call them out? And sometimes these people work in like fields to do with like mental health and stuff like that, but they just can't put two and two together. I mean, there's all these dynamics to do with this thing that's going on. But I mean, yeah, it's or even just somebody that you love. I mean, but sometimes you do have to take a chance, and I'm kind of at that place right now in my life where there's somebody who I really care about, that what's going on is starting to affect children. And it's like, if somebody doesn't say something, because there's a conversation about it that has happened before, but this person, of course, isn't involved in it because they are actually involved in it. The conversation wasn't about them, but it was about how they're involved in it and whatnot. Not directly, right? But I mean, and so, but you just kind of hope that it's like, maybe everything will just work out fine. But then when the same, for lack of a better word, nonsense keeps on kind of coming up, and you can see that there is suffering taking place, and if you're aware of these behaviors, sometimes I don't know, for myself, it's like, I think I need to take a chance. When I think about it, I don't know if it's even taking a chance. I think it's taking a chance not saying something. Because if you have some information that can help reconcile an issue, a very serious issue that is going on with somebody, and you withhold that information, and it's like, is there anybody else who has this information, who is able to put these pieces together and to be of service, who's close enough to this person, who is able to phrase things in a way so that they won't feel like they're being attacked, so that they won't feel like they're, like, you have to sit down and have a heart to heart, because yeah, it's not going to be a head to head. There can't be any kind of energy behind it other than love and compassion for a person and their situation. And you have to be able to draw a dozen parallels so that it can really sink in, and then give it time, and then just walk away, and not try to drive it home, but just like, share what you have, and then walk away. So yeah, it feels like it's time. I've taken some steps to begin this conversation, but it hasn't happened yet. I'm not looking forward to it, but I also believe at the same time that our relationship is at a standstill until a conversation like this happens. So, because it indirectly affects our relationship. There are certain things that I can see that are interrelated, that it has a negative effect that is sort of impeding our ability to really connect, because this thing has to be dealt with. And so, yeah, I think that's it. It's a tricky old subject, but I mean, how are we supposed to heal and move on from this stuff if we don't talk about it, if we don't face these things, these demons? And I mean demons, like, I'm just saying, so like, even in the Bible of the Christians, their holy Bible, they have something that is known as iniquity, which is, what is it called? It is essentially transgenerational sin. So just forget about this idea of man is a sinner and woman's a sinner. Like, none of that kind of nonsense. None of not sin, like sin is in the word, the archery term, it means missing the mark. And so this is where this concept of energenetics comes into play, where it's like, if you come here to transmute certain energies, you came here for a reason, on a path. Well, if you have children, before you have transmuted those energies, you energetically pass those traits on to your offspring. I mean, yeah, there's still a spirit incarnate, a soul, but they're also this thing. There's this lineage, and it's a complex system, life, right? And the whole everything to do with how, life. I just want to say that, the transmigration of souls, but I don't even know if that's the right term. It just sounds cool. But the point is, that this stuff has been going on in families, for a long time. And it only takes one person to put a stop to it. But somebody has to do it. And then you heal this sickness that has been passed down from generation to generation, due to a lack of teachings. You have to stop the teaching, which is the behavior. That is the teaching. You know what? You tell somebody to do something, that's not the teaching. People, when kids see their parents' behavior and be like, oh, okay, that is, you're telling them what to do by how you behave. If you're a hypocrite, you're teaching them how to be hypocrites. If you're manipulative, that is what they're taking away from that. They're little sponges. They're paying attention to everything. They're using you as an example, and they're absorbing those behavior patterns, and they're getting imprinted into their subconscious, which then become an influence in their life as they get older, right? So whatever the case, it's just super important for somebody to take responsibility for this stuff. It's like, and I think this is part of the beauty of it too, is it's like, if you recognize that it's not even you, it's like that personality thing, that what you were exposed to, where those behaviors come from, that's not you. You're something else. You're a unique expression of consciousness. You are something that is beautiful and divine and sacred and uncorruptible, unfuckwithable, for what it's worth. You are something that is so sacred that it's not even funny, something that is eternal and infinite and whatnot, right? And so it's not, those behaviors are not you. And when you recognize that this is something that got passed down the family, then it takes it off your shoulders, and you realize that it's just your opportunity to heal this thing. But it's not you, right? It's not like there's something wrong with you. And I think that that's an important point, to not take it personally, because it's not. You had no choice in the matter, because you were born. You can't choose what you were exposed to as a child, that these behaviors that you thought were okay, that these attitudes to go around, I don't know if the word is prostrating yourself, but just really asserting yourself and in certain ways that are not harmonious, and that are not what is it, that don't take everything that needs to be taken into account, right? And so it's funny, this whole video ended up being about narcissism, but it's a tricky subject, and yeah, I really hope, yeah, I wrote about this in depth in my book. That's why it's very easy for me to talk about it. But yeah, I think that's the end of this video. I need a drink of water, and yeah, it's time to eat. So hope it helps.